Morning and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this very special segment today on the 14th day of the 4th month of 2023, meaning 14th of April. Well, ladies and gentlemen, today we have for you the news update and then we look at the situation in Western Australia. But first of all, here's the news in brief.
Thousands of people in the country's northwest have endured a harrowing night and are still being battered by record-breaking winds as we go to air this morning. Severe tropical cyclone Ilsa crossed the coast as a Category 5 storm this morning. With early reports, the Pardue Roadhouse has suffered great damage. The storm has been downgraded to a Category 3 as it tracks inland, with communities all the way to the NT border told to prepare. In breaking news this morning, the FBI has arrested a 21-year-old man suspected of leaking highly classified military documents in what the Pentagon is describing as a deliberate criminal act. Agents descended on a house in Massachusetts to take Air National Guard member Jack Teixeira into custody. Investigators believe he led the online chat group where the secret documents were posted. The National Peak Body for Indigenous Children and Families says opposition leader Peter Dutton must report any instances of child sexual abuse in Alice Springs. Mr Dutton repeated claims that local Indigenous children were being repeatedly abused. Chief Executive of the group, Catherine Liddle, says his claims are not backed up by data. New South Wales Health Minister Ryan Park has announced that emergency hospitals will have a ratio of 1 nurse to every 3 patients by the end of the year. Unions say it's long overdue because of the issue of safety in busy emergency departments.
And the emergency departments are always very busy and, I think they need as much staff as they can in that one to manage. Well, right now, let's take a look at that situation where the cyclone Isla has hit Western Australia.
Actually, is the right word. Yeah. Tropical cyclone Ilsa formed one yesterday as it intensified. It maintains its severe cyclone strength right now, though it has crossed the coast in the last few hours. So we're starting to see it moving into a weakening trend. Don't think that it's weak, though. It is incredibly strong still. In fact, the Bureau reported preliminary wind gust measurements of 288 kilometres an hour as it moved in towards the coast. Now, it's going to maintain some of that strength as it heads inshore today, and it's connecting up with a trough and frontal system that's moving through the south of WA. That's going to be one to watch in particular. We've got gusty winds for large parts of the state. For now, the certainty of the track is really tightening up, so we've got a good idea about exactly where this is going to go from here. Now that it's moved inshore, things really settling down. It's a Category 4 system right now. We will see further weakening in the coming hours, but cyclone warnings remain in force right the way in through to the interior of WA, getting towards the Northern Territory, in fact. It's not just what's going on in terms of the winds, though, it's also the rain. You can see this big signal getting all the way down through into South Australia through the day today. Around the system, though, we're talking about totals 150, perhaps 300 millimetres for some. That means we're definitely talking about the possibility of flash flooding. Flood warnings are also current for rivers through large parts of WA, getting into the west of the Territory as well. And we're going to see more rain out of this, getting into the southeast as that trough and frontal system moves through. By the end of the weekend, though, we won't see any more remnants of this system at all. It'll have completely cleared out. So a wild couple of days ahead for many.
And wild few days coming ahead as well. Let's take a look at from the Bureau of Meteorology and see what they have to say.
Still in hourlies at the moment for the warnings. Currently a Category 3 system. It's to the east of Marble Bar, so Marble Bar is starting to feel some of the impacts of the outer edge of really the cyclone, but they're still getting some very heavy rainfall and winds gusting in excess of 90 kilometres an hour. Overnight we saw it cross between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. on Eastern Standard Time as a Category 5 system, and a bit earlier than that we saw one of our observation stations at Badut Island, well offshore. They gusted to 289 kilometres an hour before their observation stopped working, but so sustained winds were in excess of 200 kilometres an hour. So that means twice the speed of most legal limits on freeways being sustained with gusts up to 289 kilometres an hour. So a very intense and dangerous system, but still Category 3, gusting 150 or so near the core and continuing to move inland. Telfer on alert. Cyclone warnings continuing across large parts of inland WA, and Telford's probably the next town under the influence in this afternoon.
Those winds offshore, are they record-breaking? And I assume the station's not reporting anymore because of damage?
Yeah, not quite sure. We're looking into that, whether it's a power outage, damage, etc. But you can imagine with 280 km/h winds, unfortunately and that was sampling the western eye wall as it went through before it stopped reporting. So we're definitely looking into that to see what was the go there. But yeah, some big numbers, not quite record-breaking. I think Barrow Island back in the late 90s holds a record there for about 400 km/h in a cyclone there. But preliminary estimates of the sustained wind could be a record in Australia. So we're looking at that as well. So sustained winds in excess, I think it's about 219 km/h, but that's preliminary at the moment.
You're stretching me, Dean. I think it was 408, maybe.
Oh,
Barrow
there you
Island.
go.
Okay, now, this is still an incredibly dangerous system, right? So Category 3, we're still expecting to see lots more wild weather, not just today, but into the days ahead. Can you step us through what's going to happen from now as we get into the weekend?
Yeah, absolutely, particularly for our inland Aboriginal communities and then some of our remote communities as well. So still Category 3 system will only very slowly downgrade as it moves through inland parts of the northern interior of Western Australia. Then it will move into southern NT late tonight into the early hours of Saturday morning, likely as a tropical low. Now, as it does so, it's going to have a lot of heavy rain and gusty winds with it. So we're looking at widespread 30 to 50 with isolated falls up to 80 millimetres through southern parts of NT, but most of this will fall in only 6 to 12 hours. It's a fast-moving system, so it's likely to lead to flash and riverine flooding, and a lot of those dirt roads in this part of the world becoming unusable, and could see some brief isolation of communities and property owners and residents. Now, further south, a lot of this moisture is also going to get pulled down into a cold front that moved through Perth yesterday, and will sweep through South Australia today and into southeastern parts of the country tomorrow. Likely to look to 20 to 40 millimetres of rainfall through much of western and northern South Australia, with isolated falls up to 80 millimetres possible with storms. Then that'll move through Adelaide later today and tonight, and then Victoria, New South Wales and Tasmania tomorrow, with around 10 to 25 millimetres for most. So for the farming communities, this could be a good start off, but further inland through parts of western South Australia, southern NT, more of a flood risk and a wind risk also still through southern parts of the Northern Territory, including Yulara and Alice Springs.
Wow, so rain on the rocks, certainly, and it could be quite dangerous. Tell me, how much longer do we have to keep an eye on the north for this threat of tropical cyclones?
Yeah, look, thankfully this should be the last one. Tropical cyclone season normally wraps up, you're saying, or this system?
Yeah, absolutely. You can't say it's going to be the last one. You know that you're just asking for it then.
Yeah, it's true, but we've still got a couple of weeks, but we are seeing a big change in the pattern next week. We're very much like that winter-spring, very large highs, and southeasterly trades going all the way to northern Australia and even north of Australia as well. So normally that's a good sign that we're kind of wrapping up. But you're right, can't ever say no. Could see a low or two, particularly in the Coral Sea next week or so, but that's well offshore.
Well, there you go. Of course, he did get a bit of a lesson there on what to say and what not to say, especially on air. That comes with training. Well, right now, what is Peter Dutton up to? Dutton and the government trade barbs over Alice Springs crime rate.
It's been 3 months since crime in Alice Springs was cast into the national spotlight, and Peter Dutton says the situation hasn't improved.
We're treating Territorians as second-class citizens under this government, and it has to stop.
The opposition leader has spent the past 2 days in Alice Springs with CLP Senator Jacinta Price. He says the introduction of alcohol restrictions and extraterritorial police earlier this year haven't done enough to ease problems in the town.
And you've got kids here tonight who are going to be sexually abused, or families where domestic violence has now become a current occurrence.
I would urge the opposition leader, please don't use Alice Springs as a political football with irresponsible accusations if they can't be followed up.
But Mr Dutton's allegations about high rates of child sexual abuse have been rejected by the Territory's police minister and the national body representing Indigenous children.
It is not able to be substantiated. None of the evidence substantiates his claims.
There is no evidence to back it up. The data is not matching. It is frustrating and it is disappointing.
What evidence do you have that there is this so-called rampant child sexual abuse occurring in remote central Australia?
Well, with respect, that's such an ABC question. I've spoken to the police and the social workers, some of whom are out on stress leave at the moment because of the scenes that they've endured.
I would ask Opposition Leader Peter Dutton, if you are aware of this, then you need to mandatory report it to police.
While there's no current data available for Central Australia, the Territory Families Department says there were more than 100 substantiations of child sexual exploitation across the entire NT in 2021 and 2022, with more than 70 in the 7 months to January this year. It says they were all referred to police for further investigation. The federal government says it's having ongoing discussions about how a one-off $250 million funding package will be allocated to address disadvantage across Central Australia. Lee Robinson, ABC News, Alice Springs.
Well, there you are, once-off funding of $2 million. Well, it's always throwing money at the situation, the best option. Are there other things that could be done? Can we control it with other means? Maybe not. But so that's what it is. Ladies and gentlemen, right now it's time to take a look at functions and events happening in Brisbane. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have time for you in this segment today. Don't forget that tomorrow we are back at 9, and tomorrow at 10 a.m. we might have a very special interview from the Bangladesh Puja and Cultural Organization, and the President Hemendra Malik will be in the studio talking about the upcoming Novas of the celebrations. Yes, so that's coming up tomorrow. Until tomorrow, it's goodbye from us. It's always wonderful having your company. We'll see you back tomorrow.